Today's tip is for the cyclists in the audience. Every hand signal you need to know before your next group ride. That's right, today we're tipping you off on how to not look like an absolute noob on your next, or maybe even your first, group ride. I can remember my first group ride, struggling to clip into my pedals and frankly having absolutely no idea why everyone else seemed to be so obsessed with pointing. So alas, I'm here to show you 10 hand signals that you absolutely need to know in order to keep yourself and everyone else around you out of danger on your next group ride. But first, why hand signals? To be completely honest, I'm actually not entirely sure. So let me just say this, just because someone in history decided that hand signing was going to be the universal language of the Peloton doesn't mean that using your mitts is always going to be the best way to communicate. You need to know these signs, but you also need to use your brain. If it's easier to just shout something out, well then shout away. That said, let's get to number 1. Stopping. Arguably the most important sign in your arsenal. Know it or take a very angry chin to the back. Number 2, slowing. Also important, the slowing signal should always be used before a complete stop, but there are going to be times you're going to use it on its own to meet the speed of moving traffic, to signal the end of a hard hammer session, or maybe even to let one of those obnoxious moving objects pass through the bike lane. Like a pedestrian completely clueless to the fact that they just cost you that last KOM. Number 3, turning. Enough said. Number 4, potholes. If signaling a stop is the most important signal, then signaling a pothole or similar hazard is the most prevalent. So get working on those finger exercises because your knuckles are going to be about as ripped as your quads if you ride on the kind of roads that I do. Number 5, gravel or another hazard. With all 5 fingers extended, I want you to pretend that you are waking up a colleague who has dozed off in a very important meeting. You want to be firm enough that you definitely bring them to, but not so firm as to startle them and disrupt the meeting. Number 6, lane blockages. Key thing to keep in mind with this more advanced signal, always tuck the arm on the affected side behind your back. Car on the right, tuck your right arm behind the back. Car on the left, you get where I'm going with this. Moving on. Number 7, train tracks. Yes, despite the fact that we're about 100 years past the golden years of the locomotive industry, cyclists have for some reason decided that this should have its own dedicated signal. So what you're going to do is pretend it's a pothole and then cast some shame on that street. Number 8, pull through. Best not to ever have to use this signal, but God forbid you find yourself at the front of the group, you're going to want to become a master at this one. Quick pro tip, always make sure to check behind you before swinging off after the end of a pull. The last thing you want to do is throttle yourself, pulling the rest of the group just to swing off in time to become, well, frankly, hood ornament. And that's it. The 8 hand signals you absolutely need to know before your next group ride. Of course, every group has its own signaling system, and so you can pretty much just ignore everything I told you and just do what everyone else around you does. If you want more tips like today's, be sure to check back every Tuesday on Facebook and Instagram, or you can see the full collection at fitforhope.com/tipoff.